Greetings and welcome to the Arizona Revival History Channel. My name is Dale Gilmore. One of the great healing evangelists of the 20th century was Asa Alonzo Allen, commonly known as A. Allen. He held tent meetings across the world, but his headquarters were Miracle Valley, Arizona, about 90 miles south of Tucson. When you are a world-recognized healer that God is using, you will see a variety of healings in your ministry. So if you are asked, what is the greatest healing you saw the Lord perform in your ministry, you might have to think about that answer. However, there is a healing that stands out to Reverend R.W. Schambach, who was a member of Allen's team in those years. It happened in a meeting in Birmingham, Alabama. What makes the night so special was not just a healing of a badly deformed young boy, but what transpired in the arena after the healing. Let's get into the story. This is a report from R.W. Schambach, who was a revival preacher, healer, and televangelist who died in 2012. In his book titled Miracles, he tells the story of this young boy, which he says is the greatest miracle he had ever witnessed. Reverend Schambach worked with A. Allen for 5 years in the 1950s. This story occurred in the Birmingham, Alabama Fairgrounds Arena. A. Allen was holding healing meetings there. A woman from Knoxville, Tennessee, decided she needed to attend the meetings with her young son and a friend. When the young boy was born, he was diagnosed with 26 maladies. The doctors that attended his birth informed his mother that he would probably not live until his first birthday. However, at the time of these meetings, the little boy was approaching 4 years of age. He was born with no male organs. He was blind, he was deaf, and was unable to speak. Reverend Schambach said his tongue perpetually hung out of his mouth and was almost down to his chin. Both arms and legs were badly deformed and twisted. His elbows appeared to penetrate into his stomach. His knees twisted and seemed to perpetually touch his elbows. He had no feet, only clubs. It was typical at Allen meetings for those who wanted healing prayer to fill out a card which had a number on it. Then when the healing portion of the service would begin, certain numbers would be called out and those individuals could come forward for healing prayer with A. Allen and his team. On the first afternoon of the meetings, R.W. Schambach said he met the mother, saw the little boy, and helped her fill out a prayer card. Allen was holding 3 services a day, and the mother and the little boy attended all of them. Yet her prayer card number was never called. The next Sunday, the mother came to Brother Schambach and said, "Sir, I am down to my last $20. I've paid the hotel bill, but we've been eating at the restaurant and coming to 3 services a day and giving an offering in each service. All the money has run out, and my baby has not been prayed for. She was obviously very upset and was ready to go home. Schambach answered her by saying, "Mr. Allen prays for those people and the numbers that the Holy Spirit leads him to call out. I won't apologize for the Holy Spirit. But tonight, if your number is not called and your little boy is not prayed for, I will take your son back to Reverend Allen's trailer and have him lay hands on your son and make sure he is prayed for." On that Sunday night, A.A. Allen announced that they would be collecting an offering of faith. Reverend Schambach said he had never heard Allen announce an offering like that before. A.A. Allen went on to explain, "An offering of faith is to give an offering to God of something that you cannot afford to give. If you can afford it, there is no faith involved. So give him something you cannot afford to give." Schambach said as soon as A.A. Allen said that, he saw the little boy's mother get up from her seat and come running down the aisle and put an offering in the bucket. He said he had never seen anyone so eager to give an offering in his life, and he confessed that he stood up and went and looked in the bucket to see what she had given. It was her last $20. R.W. Schambach was deeply moved and began to examine his own heart, wondering if he would have the faith to do something like that. Brother Allen started his message, but about 15 minutes into it, he stopped and said, "I am being carried away by the Holy Spirit." Then he began to say out loud where he was being taken and what he saw. He said he was being taken to a hospital, and then he said he was inside the hospital, and he knew where the Spirit was taking him because he heard all these babies crying. It was a maternity ward. Then he saw 5 doctors standing around a table looking at a newly born baby. The Spirit showed him the baby had 26 maladies or diseases. Well, upon hearing that, Reverend Schambach started to get excited. Allen continued in his vision. "The doctors are saying the child would not make it to age 1, but that is not true. The child is almost 4. Then he said, "I see the mother packing a suitcase. Another lady is along on the trip. The baby is in a bassinet. I see them driving on a highway, and I see signs of the Tennessee-Alabama border. The car is driving into the parking lot of our meeting. Lady, you are here. Bring me that baby. God is going to give you 26 miracles tonight." Now, the pictures of what transpired after this are not very clear. There's only a few of them. They were taken off of the story on Facebook and are blurry, but you can catch what is happening. But back to the story. The woman came running down the aisle for the second time, this time with the little boy in her arms. She gave the young boy to A.A. Allen. All 3,000 in the crowd were standing, as were the people on the stage, especially Reverend Schambach. Allen asked everyone to join with him in faith and close their eyes. R.W. Schambach thought to himself, I'm keeping my eyes open to see what God is going to do with this young boy. Allen began to walk back and forth across the stage, holding the child. Immediately, things began to happen to that young boy. The first thing Schambach saw was the young boy's tongue snap back into his mouth like a rubber band. For the first time in 4 years, his tongue was in his mouth. The second thing he saw was the boy's eyes, which had been milky white, suddenly turning brown. It was obvious the boy could now see, and Schambach was sure that in the process his ears were open so he could hear. Third, the little boy's arms and legs began to snap like pieces of wood back into their proper positions, where they should be. Also now he could stretch out both his arms and legs. Fourthly, Schambach said it looked like God was shaping something that looked like silly putty on the young boy's feet, shaping toes on feet on what had been only club stumps. At this point, most of the audience had opened their eyes and began to verbally shout and cheer what God was doing in this little boy. At this point, A.A. Allen had set the boy down on the floor on his new feet, and he began to run around. The child had never seen his mother before, but somehow recognized her and began to run toward her, jumping in her arms. He then spoke his first words, "Mama." At this point in the service, Pastor Schambach said, the presence and power of God were so strong in the place that people could hardly remain standing. There were 12 or 13 individuals who were sitting in wheelchairs by the stage. Allen told them to stand up. They all stood up and found that they could walk around without the wheelchair. Many had their spinal cord injuries healed. Some began to run up and down the aisles of the building. Others had been brought to the meeting in stretchers from nearby hospitals and had been laying on the stretchers waiting to be prayed for. Allen looked at them and told them to get up. They all did, and it appeared that their healing had happened to them without anyone laying hands on them. At the same time, 6 individuals throughout the crowd began to run to the front with their white canes in hand, and threw those canes up on the stage. Their sight had been restored just sitting in the audience that night. Likewise, a group of others came forward using their hearing aids, taking them out of their ears and placing them up on the stage. Their hearing had been fully restored, again without anyone touching them or ministering over them. Getting back to the story of the young boy and his mother, they left Birmingham and made it back to Knoxville, Tennessee. The following Saturday, R.W. Schambach received a special delivery letter from the mother. She wrote, "Brother Schambach, I took the baby to the hospital on Monday morning, and they won't give him back. They've kept him all week. They've called in every doctor from all over the country who had anything to do with this case. They have pronounced that my baby is cured of all 26 maladies or diseases." The Allen team followed up by seeking affidavits from them certifying that the boy's life was a miracle. Then the letter contained a P.S. on the bottom. She wrote, and I quote, "Remember I told you I was down to my last $20? When Brother Allen took that special faith offering, I knew I had to trust God and give that $20. Well, after the service, everyone wanted to talk to me and my little boy. One lady shook hands with me, and in her hand was a folded piece of paper which she gave to me. I later looked, and it was a $20 bill. As I shook hands with all the people who had lined up to talk with me and see my son, they all had folded bills in their hands. At the end of the service, I went to the ladies' room and counted all the money I had received. The total was $235. Isn't that just like God? I came to the meetings, paid for the hotel, ate in restaurants, and gave an offering at every service, and I'm going home with more money than when I came. Plus, my son is healed." Unquote. I know this event happened in the 1950s, but I do not know the mother's name or the name of the young boy. Now, if anyone watching this video knows the identity of this man who, if he is still living, would be in his 70s, please have him contact me at Arizona Revival History ArizonaRevivalHistory@gmail.com. That's ArizonaRevivalHistory@gmail.com. I would love to talk with any of his relatives or children if he has any. A follow-up video on him and his life since this experience would be worthwhile. Well, friends, I think we are approaching days like this again, when the power of God performs these types of miracles. If you are struggling with physical infirmities, don't give up. Have faith and keep praying and seeking God. I believe another healing revival is on the way. I am Dale Gilmore for the Arizona Revival History Channel. Thank you for watching.